What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 29. And we've got a good one for you today. You guys probably recognize the person on the screen right there. That is Jean-Baptiste, lead game designer for Rainbow Six Siege. He's been on the podcast before, so repeat guest, good friend of ours, and somebody who I think we all have a lot of questions for right now. At the time of recording this, are just a couple of days after the reveal and the release of Operation Shadow Legacy on the test server. And it is, I think I can comfortably say that this is the most significant game-changing season that's ever been released when you look at all the changes as a whole. Normally at this point, I would want to list like the major changes that come with the season, but there's so many here that I know I'll forget to. Every time that I try to list the amount of changes coming with Shadow Legacy, I forget like 2 or 3. That's how much stuff is here.
It's the same for me. I can never get it.
There's just so much good stuff coming. And so with that in mind, we're going to sit down here with JB and ask him questions about what went into these changes, the thought process behind the changes, and just talk to the person who's really at the helm driving a lot of these changes. So with that said, JB, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today, man?
Doing great. It's my pleasure to be here with you guys. I'm coming back from vacations. The whole reveal has just been done like 2 days ago. People's reaction so far is really, really positive. So being here to talk about it with you guys is just a really nice treat. So I can't complain.
Well, we're looking forward to this. I mean, I know that I'm just like, I'm chomping at the bit here to get started. But go ahead, Alex. Where do you want to dive into this at? I mean, we can go a lot of different directions here, but.
Well, there's so much. Let's start with one, because I've seen a lot of people ask this, just in general with the scope changes. What's the reasoning behind everyone not having everything for the one times? Is it balance? Is it just to test it out? Is it to get more data on some of the newer scopes? And is it something that might be considered, or is it impossible because of the way the guns are done, or the mapping of skins, or what it might be?
So it might be considered. When it comes to scopes, the philosophy behind it is that we consider, like, there are 2 facets. We consider that for a same level of zoom, you should have access to some things that you find comfortable. But then when it comes to the different level of zooms, then we feel like we, as designers, should keep it as a balancing lever, and we should decide who has access to which level of zoom, because it's a really important part of how you play a specific operator, and it's something we need to use as a balancing lever. Like, some operators should have access to big level of zooms, some shouldn't. So that being said, we know right now that there's a lot of people discussing exactly that point. So for the 1X, should it be possible for all the operators to have access to all the guns, all the scopes? We're not sure yet. It's a lot. Like, I don't remember what the exact number is for the total amount of 1X now, but between the NATO ones, the Russian ones, and the new ones, it's a lot.
It's 7 or 8.
It's close. It's really a lot. And there's a point where having so much choice, like, there's a diminishing return on having just too many choices. So there's different options here. We could decide to just eliminate the ones that people dislike the most completely from the game and keep only the best ones. But it's just, I'm not sure it's the best way to go to make it possible for everyone to have like 8 choices just among the 1X. So without talking about the different, like the other level of zooms that you'd need to choose from. But we're open to like discussing this. I discussed it with Mathieu, who is our weapon designer, just before talking to you guys, just before lunch. So and we had this exact same conversation where we felt like it's still an open topic. We know that some sites for now are like more buggy than others. Some are not behaving exactly the way we'd like to. So I think a lot of the debate is also being driven by the fact that some optics have a lot more flaws than others.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that cleared out, and we will definitely try to clear it out during the next weeks of TS as much as we can. Even with that cleared out, it's still an open question on do we give it all? But if we give it all, maybe it means that we need to have less. But we want it to be comfortable for everyone, definitely.
Along those lines, is it? Let me first of all say that you just released a dev blog outlining all of the optic changes, and I'll link that in the description. It's a great piece. I'm sure a lot of work went into that really explains what each optic is and the thought process behind it. So again, that'll be linked in the description if you want to read that. So based on what you said there, is it fair to say that you don't view any of the different one-time scopes as one being stronger? The goal is not to have one that's stronger than the other. In a perfect world, is it fair to say that all of the one-time scopes would be balanced and just have pluses and pros and cons to each one that would level out across the board?
That's correct. That's correct. I think there's still going to be some that are stronger than others, but it should be hard to pinpoint exactly what the best one is, and it should be more a matter of personal preference and comfort. We're not aiming to have one being really stronger than the other. It was the case until today, and it's probably still the case in this version on the TS, that some are stronger than others, but it's not by design. It's not something we want. It's more like some things are history, like some things are just heritage of where the game comes from, and some things are just mistake by us, like not tweaking properly the size of the reticle, like some things like that we just need to keep on tweaking during the next weeks of TS.
I noticed something while we were on sites. Correct me if I'm wrong, but for changing the color of the sight, you had to change the way the reticle works itself.
That's correct.
So the reticle is a little more fuzzy on the test build than it is on the live build, because on the live build it's very like aliased. I guess aliased would be the right word. It's like very pixelated but super sharp. Is that something that there might be a balance in between there, or should we get ready and expect the new type of reticle to be looking like that, and then it's only size change?
I don't have the technical knowledge to answer very precisely your question. I don't know if it is possible to get it as sharp as it was in the live version. What I know is that the technological change that we made is one that we're not going to revert, because it's basically what we're doing is, instead of rendering the optic as something that is baked within the weapon, we're rendering it from HUD now. It's rendered as a part of the head-up display. So it's a different tech. And the reason for that is simply that one of the other aspects of the season is the fact that you can now customize your reticle color. And to be able to do that properly, we needed to do that tech change. So it's really something that we will definitely move forward with. But now I like the technical knowledge to be able to say if we can get it to the level of sharpness that you had before with the previous tech. I don't know that.
Fair enough. That makes a lot of sense then. Yeah, of course, for you to change the color, it can't be baked in.
No, we needed it to be just more modular and easier to update.
One thing talking about that, Alex, whenever I had the early access, I turned all my game settings to like max. And I haven't noticed what you're talking about. Are you talking about it being pixelated around the edge, or just looking at it itself, it looks like it's maybe
no? So
not as high definition.
If you pull them up side by side, I sent this to Matt as well, just to show what, because I don't think as many people noticed it as I did, because it was the first thing I saw when I jumped in was the sight's different, man. But if you pull them up side by side, the live build one is like very pixelated and sharp round. Especially if you play with anti-aliasing off any of the temporal stuff, so the stuff that happens after the game is like rendered properly. It's super crisp. Whereas if you look at live now, it's kind of like faded. I guess it looks more real on live build, because in real life it is light bouncing off some glass. So it looks more true on the new one, but it's a big change if you're used to, a couple like pixels that are completely literally from black to white. But yeah, that was one of the things that I initially noticed. Then the reticles themselves, I think you kind of alluded to this, saying that some of them might be a little different than or might change. Like the new Hollow and the 1.5 are very, very thick. Is that a little bit of a balancing thing maybe, or is that maybe just a test?
It's not as good as we'd like them to be. Okay. I just discussed it with Mathieu, so literally here I'm repeating what he told me, because I'm really not a specialist. But he just told me that the Hollow being that thick is not something we want, so we're going to try to get it thinner. And also the issues we have with some of the 1.5 is that what happens with Hibanagan, for instance, where even when you use the scope, you still see the iron sight.
Iron sight.
This is usually we try to avoid that, but to do it properly, we need to have a sort of a little piece between the scope and the gun, so that when we look at it, we don't see the iron sight again. And we got it in times in terms of modeling on the guns for the 2x and the other new sights, but we didn't get it in time for the 1.5x. So we're working on it, but right now it's a bit lower. The scope is a bit lower than we'd like to, and it's because of that you have so much of the iron sight just being present inside the scope.
But that's huge. That means that means we could maybe expect to use the UMP with the 1.5 and not see the entire ring scope in front.
Yes. I don't know when that.
That doesn't matter.
This is what we want.
Yeah. Knowing that's coming is big enough.
That brings me joy. And I mean, I can't mention Hibana's name without straight up asking you, who on your team hates Hibana, and why? Why? Like, I honestly, name me another operator in the game that has received more nerfs that isn't named Blackbeard, okay?
All the other ones you're mad at.
That's one idea I got. But for Hibana, to be fair, and this is a little bit of a teasing, you can expect some really nice news for Hibana relatively soon.
Okay.
Ooh.
She's gonna get some love. She's gonna get some love.
Okay, and let's make sure the audience, if they didn't watch the last time you were on the podcast, you made a statement similar to that, and then here we are with the biggest season ever, a couple months later. So when JB says that there's some stuff coming soon, that is the truth, and trust him on that. I guess let's move over to the zoom scopes now. So you talked a little bit about the new 1x. I think as far as the zoom scopes, the question that I would like to start is, how did that conversation start? Was it you guys saying there's a problem here, we want to fix it? How did the conversation start with, we want to introduce more zoom scopes into the game?
It's a very long-term conversation which started years ago, because you can track it back to the conversation about ACOGs. Like, okay, who should have access to ACOGs? Is it a good thing that all attackers have access to ACOGs? Is it a good thing that even we have so much access to ACOGs on defense? Like, all of this has been a very long-term conversation, and I'm honestly not sure that we have the final answer yet. But we felt like the more we knew about the game, the more we felt like, okay, the level of zoom is actually a very important balancing parameter. It affects a lot how you play an operator. It affects a lot your gameplay, and typically we felt like there was a lot of room for improvement in terms of on one side variety, like how much you could make your shooting gameplay vary from one operator to another depending on which scope you had equipped, and on the other, a big improvement possibility also on the balancing side, because the weapon is definitely part of how strong an operator is, and it's not a good thing to only rely on damage or recoil to do that for a weapon. Like some other parameters can be tough to play with. Like everyone knows that rate of fire is complex for us to play with. Like there's a bunch of parameters like that are a bit complex, but we felt like this one was a big parameter that was in front of us and that we hadn't really touched since the game release. So it felt like something that we had to work on.
When you remove ACOG from characters, because that has happened quite a lot over the time, and I think from a viewer perspective, when watching competitive, it's more interesting watching now because a lot of the fights are a little closer together and they can happen faster. There's not as much of this whole jiggle peeking and holding that one angle for a long time, even though it's a completely valid way of playing, and I mean I love doing it as well. Through Jaeger, Smoke SMG, Smoke SMG 11 and Sledge SMG 11, because they were the only two with them back then. With ACOG, Bandit, Ash, the Alda, I don't know. There's probably been more. What do you see like data wise when you take them away? Does it drastically change things? Because if I remember correctly, Ash actually went up a little bit in performance, but lower in pick rate. And I think we saw the same with Maestro.
True.
Right?
True,
so
absolutely.
how is the argument that it's making them stronger? Is that just because more people are picking them and then it makes it easier for, I guess, lower skill gap, or is it increasing the skill gap? Is that what you're trying to get to, or?
Could be. what we know we will affect when we change the scopes is definitely the peak rate. It's going to feel different. So we know it's going to change how people perceive it and how people play with it. We don't always know how it's going to play out in terms of balancing and power level. And it's definitely true that data-wise, we like depending, it varies a lot, but like it's hard to compare a 1x to an ACOG because you're gonna like compile a lot of data together, and this data is actually gonna say a lot of different things at the same time because ACOGs are supposed to be good at long range, and it's I mean if you enter a close quarter fight and you hold a 1x, I think you feel much happier than if you had an ACOG in hands, right? So depending on how you took the fight and depending on what's the average fighting range in Siege and depending on which maps you're looking at and depending, all of this is going to have a huge impact on how strong you are depending on which scope you're using. So it's not that clear for us, for instance, to say, okay, ACOG are definitely stronger than 1x. It's not that clear. But what we know is it feels bad to get wrecked by an ACOG on dock when you just spawned as an attacker. We know it feels bad because people say it. Like it's not about how we feel about the stat. It's people say it feels bad. So we know what kind of gameplay we want for defenders. We know how we want Siege to feel like, and so it's not necessarily a power level move when we do something like that. It's very often more like we feel like the game is just going to be more fun if it's played this way than this way.
Yeah, so it's more of frustration balancing than an actual power level balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have our hypothesis about the new scopes, and we have our ideas on which one might be the stronger, but we don't know yet. Like, obviously, when we did the distribution with the operators, we had something in mind in terms of which one we think is stronger or not.
What's your guess then?
We could totally be wrong.
What's your guess?
My guess is that the middle range zoom level are going to be very strong. My guess is that 1.5 and 2x are probably likely to be very, very strong. But
yeah.
We're super bad players ourselves. Like even our best players are just so far away from pro players level or top ranked levels that we have no illusion on our ability to evaluate the power level. So we rely on community feedback to do that. So we have our hypothesis, but very often we're wrong.
Well, one of the first things I did whenever I got in, I could look at everybody's loadouts as I went through and I looked at which operators and which weapons weren't changed. And I'd like to read a list that I have right now, okay? Because I was trying to like put together the thought process for you guys. I was trying to you can ask Zeronic. I was trying to get inside your guys' heads and figure out exactly what was going on. So, all right, here's the list of operators that did not get changed, okay? Bandit, Valkyrie, Caveira, Ella, Vigil, Maestro LMG, Alibi SMG, Mozzie, either one, the Goyo Vector, and then Malusi. Whenever I look through that list, and that's no change as far as 1x or zoom scopes. Whenever I look through that list, to me, it seems clear that those are what I would consider to be the strongest, either guns or defenders in the games, maybe ones that you might feel like are already really on the cusp. And that's, obviously that's my words, not yours by any means. So initially my thought process was, okay, I think they're nervous that these news scopes or news sites might be strong and they don't want to send these operators over the edge. But then you threw in the red dot on Jaeger and just completely blew my mind. If Jaeger getting the red dot kind of threw that theory out the window. But I think, if we exclude Jaeger, I think you maybe can establish a trend there of, some of the stronger weapons in the game didn't get, for example, you give Warden access to the 1.5 on the MPX, but not Valkyrie. Makes complete sense to me. Am I on to something there, or?
You are. It's definitely the kind of thought process that Mathieu was going with when doing the distribution with all the scopes. Absolutely. We think the 1.5 and 2x are probably very strong. But honestly, it's for us now. It's the tech that we have now to handle the distribution and make sure that each of the scope can fit with each of the weapons. This tech is much stronger than it was before. So now for us, it's much easier to do changes on that. So honestly, your guess is as good as ours. We're gonna look at what happened during the next 3 weeks on TS. We're gonna look at happened when it goes live and expect changes. Of course, with so many things that just changed. Of course, a lot of them are going to still change and shift around, and maybe Jaeger red dot is too strong. I have no idea.
No, it's fine. Keep Keep it. It's completely fine.
So good.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It is awesome right now. It really
So you changed how scopes work. They no longer work based on zoom, but on focal length.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that to combat the sensitivity issues, or is it to get ready for? Is it just better tech? Why is it changed?
I would need to ask Emilien, who worked on that, but I know that it was a math thing where they needed to make sure that everything worked correctly with the different sensitivity level for all the different level of zooms. From what Matt told me, a lot of people are reporting that they have difficulties finding back the right sensitivity level with the change. Mm-hmm. So we may need to look back at the math and make sure that we communicate on how it works and make sure that it works as it should. But from what I know, it's a math thing where we needed to adapt for this different level of sensitivity.
Makes sense. Yeah, if you kept the old one, you'd basically never be able to have a 1-to-1 with the big ass scopes. Like the 8x and 12 would not be able to be a 1-to-1.
I honestly don't know. I think it's really something, to make sure that everything can work together with a different level of zooms, but then it's like too detailed for me. But if it's something that people keep wondering about and we feel like maybe we can do a blog post, or we can definitely prep something and look at the math and make sure we can show how things work.
I'm going to steal one of Alex's questions here because we were brainstorming a little bit leading up to having you on, and I think this is an excellent question. So don't give me credit for this one, but is it nerve-wracking to make big changes like this to the game? Like on the night before the reveal, is there like a part of you that's like kind of nervous, like, oh my gosh, this is huge, like
what have I done?
How are people going to receive this? Is it really nerve-wracking for that to go through that?
It's not that bad because I don't want to sound like I don't know. I don't want to sound like we've seen it all already, but it's the 5th year. Like we've seen when the game launched, man, the matchmaking wasn't working. Right, we couldn't get into a match. So this was nerve-wracking. Like this was, oh my god, what have we done? But this in comparison is like, because honestly, we know that we could do mistakes. We know that there are definitely things that we're pushing here that could prove wrong. But we now have a big community. The game works well. We're getting better and better at what we're doing. Everyone as a community, the community is getting better at giving feedback. The pros are getting better at the game. Everyone is just getting better at what they do. So it's not like we're completely diving into the dark. Like a lot of things that we're doing is based on community feedback, is based on things that we've been observing for a long time. Like we've gotten a lot of internal feedbacks, we've gotten a lot of pro feedbacks. They don't necessarily always agree with what we do, but we always have information on how they think things are going to go. So these are informed decisions. Like we're not completely diving into the dark. So no, I wouldn't say that it's too bad in terms of bad sleep before the reveal. And honestly, given what we're working on and what's going to happen during the next year, this one might be more difficult to sleep with before the reveal, because these are much bigger changes coming to the game.
So we just got the single biggest patch we've ever seen, and you're saying that it's getting crazier.
Oh yes.
By like a lot. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's comforting.
I guess my question, to follow up on that would be why?
That's a good question.
Why change the game? Okay, because you got a game. I mean, everybody would have to admit Rainbow Six Siege has been an overwhelming success. We just talked about 60 million players. I mean, it's a huge game. Clearly, something is right with the game. So why do you feel the need to change it?
And why now?
That's a very good question. I think we're hungry. It's just we feel like. And this is a way where I think I encompass like the whole core team of the game today, but also like the whole project. Like we feel like we got here because we had ambition, and we feel like we can get even further away. We can grow even bigger than that. We feel like Siege is a complex game, kind of niche on some aspects, but we still think it has a potential for growth that is huge. And we think it has a room to grow much bigger than it is today. And to do that, we're absolutely convinced that we need to take risks. So we want to save not save. We want to preserve the core of Siege. We want to make sure that we never ever sacrifice what makes Siege so fun to play. But we're absolutely convinced we need to take risks to keep on evolving. Like we have, of course, other super successful games around us that are inspiring us, and we want to make sure that in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, when people look at Siege, they don't see just something that was super successful a few years back, but has kind of grown dusty. We just want to keep on evolving.
Wow, that's great to hear. That's like a 10 answer in my book.
Yeah, that was a. You sure didn't have that one written down and ready?
I've got right now. Go ahead.
Well, so with the amount of stuff that comes in now, because what we've been used to, we had Operation Health, which helped you guys fix some backend stuff and make things easier to solve in the future. We had all of our normal seasons with 2 operators and 1 or 2 changes here and there. Now we get one with so much that I don't even think I can remember what's actually changed. There is so many things. Possible hatches being reinforced, match replay, sites, hard Bridge Gadget. There's so much stuff that will just in general change, like operator compositions, how certain sites will be played, what you can and can't do. Are you afraid that some of it is going to get lost a little bit in like you won't get enough feedback on it because we just gravitate to the extremes and keep our focus on that as players? Like right now, sites is the hot topic. Like that's what most people are talking about. But what about the hard Bridge Gadget, right? Is that something you're a little worried about, that maybe the feedback will come too late on some of the things?
That's a good point. It's a good point. It's true that there is a lot of content coming in at the same time. And it's true that with so much content on the TS at the same time, it's not easy for us to make the difference. Like, yeah, get feedbacks on everything that matters. It's absolutely true. I think we'll be fine. I think we're gonna get feedbacks on everything that is really important and that get people lighten up enough to just take the time to get those feedbacks. We also have really good processes to get feedback. Like we have a user research team that's awesome. We have that you've met some of them, their members. We have some community developers also that are awesome. Karen, Francois, they're helping us a lot getting feedbacks, filtering everything and helping us seeing through the whole amount of things that are being said through social medias. So the thing is, I think we have to accept that not everything is going to be how we want it to be at the end of the TS. Like we are going to get through the biggest offenders during the next 3 weeks of TS. Not all of it will be fixed, but then things don't end. Like the whole season is still there, and we have all the time in the world to fix things. So we don't want people to keep on playing with things that they're unhappy with and getting stuck with that. But we still have time. Like we still have time because it's a live game. So I don't know. For instance,
another word, things will be fixed.
Yeah. If there's any big issue, I'm sure we'll know about it.
I guess one of along with Alex's point there, we haven't even talked about the new operator yet, and I want to talk about him. I think he's a really cool operator. Zero. I mean, Zero. Everybody's. You're gonna call him what you're gonna want, I guess. But the new operator Zero. He's got a lot going for him. I think is a fair way to say it. He'll the cameras, the fact that he can shoot them out and get so much information on attack is something that we've never seen before. You mix that with the ability to actually clear some utility, with each of his cameras getting 1 zap. That's another really strong aspect of it. And then a great weapon and frag grenades. I mean, it's he's got a lot going for him. So do you want to talk a little bit about the design philosophy with Zero?
Of course. Is the question more about the ability or the overall kit?
I guess overall kit. I mean, clearly there's a lot there, so maybe the overall kit would be good.
So right now, as you know, our meta game in attack is very stale, and it's true that today, if you want to find a place in an attacker's roster, you better have a good kit. So I think we just loved playing with Sam, and we discussed it a lot. But yes, it's true, his kit is very strong, but at the same time, you probably need that to find a room today in an attacker's roster in a good level game. So if we want to have any chance to see him in Pro League or in good levels in high rank games, I feel like he probably needs something like that. Maybe it's a bit too much. I have no idea, but I think it's not that far from where it should be to be played in high games.
There's a really good argument for that, just in terms of how bans work as well, because if something was strong before and is getting banned a lot now, and something comes in that might be as strong or stronger, there's at least a chance that you get the other operator in instead.
Yeah.
Right. So with Thatcher being banned all the time, well, maybe when he's finally out of quarantine, people will start banning Zero instead, and then we see Thatcher coming back in again.
Potentially. Also, Thatcher now has been changed a lot.
Changed quite a lot. Yeah, we'll get into that one. Is Sam like meant to fit in between Twitch Thatcher role on attack? He can disable things. He also gets some quite a lot of intel, but he kind of only really fits into that spot where he has to help people facilitate the push, right? Like with Heartbreach and all that stuff. So I assume the vision is that he kind of fits in somewhere around the Thatcher Twitch IQ maybe on attack.
There's that. There's also something to be said for playing him like a sort of nomad / gridlock, because it's very strong at flank watching. The cameras are super strong at flank watching. You still need someone in the camera, so it's not as automatic as you would get from a nomad, but it's still something where you can be good at that. Yeah, I think you have to combine him with other roles but it's difficult to say, because honestly, I don't fit in the shoes of a coach or an analyst in a pro player team, so I don't know exactly how.
We're never right either. Don't worry.
I don't really know, but it's exciting to try to guess where it will fit, and honestly, I can't wait to see if we see him in Pro League. I don't know yet exactly who we could replace or where he could fit. I think the frags are likely to help him a lot.
Yeah,
the gun is pretty good too, so we'll see.
And the new Heartbreach changes will help quite a lot. You had a story about that, Dylan, the Heartbreach stuff.
Yeah. So I guess I can talk about this now. We going back to whenever I was in Barcelona, which was, goodness gracious, was that a year ago?
Little over a year.
I want to say October.
Okay. So approaching a year. I played a very, very early version of the heart-breaching device while I was there with you, JB, and it was much different than what turned out. There was, first of all, it made a much smaller hole, and it had the ability to link them together with teammates to make a bigger hole. So in my opinion, the version that we got is much better, because if I remember correctly, that one was also very hard to trick because the timing of it was like a thermite charge as far as the speed. So it wasn't necessarily balanced in that version. I think the version that we got is much better in that respect, that it's the weakest of any hard breaching device by far when it comes to the ability to trick it or anything and the time it takes to deploy. But it's also much simpler to use. Is that what kind of killed that version? Was that it was kind of convoluted in how you could use it? It provided some cool moments like for you to sync up with your teammate, but it probably wouldn't have played out that smoothly in most games.
You got it exactly right. I really enjoyed the idea of linking it with a teammate one, but after playing it for a bunch and discussing it, we felt like it was probably too complex. And yeah, the additional complexity didn't really justify the outcome. So it felt like accepting it to make it simpler would probably be a win in the long run. So it's typical. Like what you played is a relatively early prototype. We had, I don't know how many versions we played, but we had tons of versions that our Barcelona friends worked on, and it's typical. We always start with tons of things, and then progressively we eliminate the ones that we think have more flaws than others, and eventually we converge to a version that's often simpler.
I know I'm going to upset Zeronic here by saying this, but for any of the viewers, don't get too upset hearing this, because this hole that it made was literally the perfect size for a Blackbeard shield. So even in the versions that we tested, I mean, within 2 rounds of us having it, it was make a hole and sit there with a Blackbeard with your shield. It was the perfect hole size for that.
It doesn't matter because the new one fits Monty perfect.
Okay.
So I just sit in there with Monty and look through. So we have 4 real Heartbreachers now, and now we're getting the Bridge Gadget. Is it because it's only ready now, and would you have liked to have seen it in game earlier than now?
Yes, we would have liked to see it earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. There's always a big delay between the moment where we observe a problem and the moment where we have the solutions. So this one is part of the attacker's meta being stale. I think I remember it was balancing cells that opened the topic. Maybe that was about a year ago. About a year ago, even maybe about a year ago. And they were observing through the stats that the attackers comp were getting more and more funneled into a very specific kind of comp. And one of the aspects of it, not the only one of the aspects was that you pretty much had to have a hard breacher, if not 2.
Yeah.
And that eliminates a lot of room for variety for other kinds of roles. So we felt like one of the solutions that we needed to work on was a hard breach charge like this one.
I mean, you can definitely see it just in ranked at like decent levels. You run 2 just because you need to guarantee that you get 3 things opened. And having Hibana is not enough because maybe 1 get tricked and then you're out of luck. So you need to guarantee that you can get 2. So having just 1 operator that can help open 1 hatch or 1 vault hole is going to be pretty huge.
If it's mandatory to open to open metallic walls, then there should be a lot of ways for attackers to do it and not only rely on operators' roles. Otherwise, it's a fake choice. Like it's if you have to do it, it's not a real choice. Yep. So we really want to try to make sure that operators' picks are always choices, not some things that are forced upon you.
What type of metrics are you going to be keeping an eye on to judge whether or not this secondary hard breaching device has had the effect that you wanted it to have?
We're definitely going to look at how it compares to other secondary gadgets in terms of pick rate. We don't want it to be the only choice, for instance, for the operators that have access to it. But we're also going to look at how it affects the composition of attacking teams. One of the effects that we're really hoping for is to allow more exotic picks. So typically, if we see more, Twitch isn't played that much today. So if we see more Twitches, if we see more Amaru, if we see more more variety in which attackers are being played.
I know, going back to Invitational, one of the things that I feel like has really been talked about several times from the dev team is that increasing, the user experience, especially in the spectator mode. So that's been like a huge. It seemed to me like that's been a big concern for you guys for a while. Whenever I look at the design of Zero, as well as Ping 2.0, another huge thing that's coming with this patch, I know the list just goes on, but whenever I think about Zero and Ping 2.0, I really feel like these are 2 things that are a direct response to trying to enhance the experience of somebody who might be dead early in the round. Is there truth to that?
There is absolutely truth to that.
So, so did you say, okay, we want to create an operator that will that is just as enjoyable for a dead teammate as it is for the person playing, or is it, did that concept exist for a long time before that?
So it wasn't when we started working on Sam. The big number 1 objective was to make a truthful Sam. Like we wanted him to feel like Sam Fisher. That was the number 1 objective for sure. That being said, we also had other things in mind because we were working on the ping system itself. We also had given ourselves the objective of improving the different phases of the game that we felt were lacking love. So a preparation phase, but also the support phase, which is what happens after you're dead. So that was definitely in the back of our mind. And it's true that one of the side objectives that we gave ourselves when we started working on that season was to try to find ways to leverage the ping system, to try to find ways to okay, what kind of attacker, for instance, could play with this ping system in an interesting way. So it wasn't a primary objective, but it happened to work decently well with the ping system that we wanted to release at that moment.
That is such a big change, the ping system, that like it's hard to even imagine how much that will actually impact overall play. I was gonna say only, but I have like 10 hours on the test server so far, and then a good handful of hours on the build we played before that. And the things you can get away with if you are the camera controller and dead, and you can ping for people. You can get wall bangs lined up. You can do some crazy stuff with the ping system. Are you afraid that it might get too strong for when people? Because I know it will help people that have difficulty communicating, but it will also drastically improve the communication of people that have good communication. Because I can do a countdown, right? I can do 3, 2, 1 on ping. Boom, guy's dead.
That's very true. That's very true. So I don't as a first thing, I don't know if too strong is are the right words. Too strong is something I would use to describe like some things that would happen that advantage one side over the other. Mm-hmm. It's true that this usage that you just described of the ping is probably stronger for attackers than defenders in average, I would say, because drones. But even like that, it's not that clear, because even defenders can get super nice yellow pings if they have well-positioned cameras. There's other aspect of that is, for me, the thing that would be problematic is if we get to a point where we often feel like we die from wall banks without understanding why and without getting any warning, and it feels frustrating. If that happens, then we need to question this aspect of the feature. But the fact that it changes, the fact that you can still have a very big impact while being dead, for instance, or that you can have a very precise communication help, like you say, I think it's even going to help even more people that already communicate well. Yeah. If you can coordinate and you can count down and say, okay, you're going to see yellow ping 3 in 3 seconds, 3 and try to wall bang, 3, 2, 1, go. This already requires a decent level of communication and coordination. So, and if you want to really leverage it perfectly well, you probably need to do that. The thing I don't know too is right now, when we look at, when we sometimes get the chance to hear the comms of pro players, which sometimes happen when sometimes the teams release some communication of their matches, I'm very impressed every time to see how extremely precise their calls can be. When they point at someone else to get for a wall bang, and they describe where exactly they need to get the shot, they can already be incredibly precise. So is it really different to describe exactly where the person is in 3 words because you got so good at this with your teammates that you can do that? Is it really that different from doing what we're doing here with the yellow pings that you're describing? It probably makes it easier with the yellow ping, but does it really feel different on the receiving end?
No, but I think what people are afraid of, and for me it's like I'm sharing your opinion on this, but I think people are worried that the ones that don't have that communication, that aren't at that skill level yet, because if I'm playing against a full stack from Team Empire, I understand that they have that communication, that they're going to be able to do that. But if I'm playing against my friends and we don't have that that ability, and we end up shooting someone through a wall on a perfect ping, it's going to feel very frustrating to that guy, of course. Have you considered maybe putting the ping in the kill cam?
So it should be in the kill cam. It's a mistake that it's not. We've
the yellow ping
that before the opening of the TS. It should be in the kill cam. It should be in the replay, because typically you should see the ping yourself at your feet, or like it should be when you see the what your opponent was seeing before killing you. You should see that yellow ping. Otherwise,
that's a massive. That's massive.
It's definitely a mistake. The fact we noticed that it wasn't there. I don't know how that we didn't see that before, but we noticed that it wasn't there just a few days before maybe 2 weeks ago or something like that. We had been discussing it a bit before, but somehow it went under the cracks, and we forgot about it. It's definitely a mistake. It should be.
Then I have no fear. Like as long as there's an indicator, and I understand that someone else facilitated this together with the other player, then the frustration is not going to be that bad, because I knew 2 people were busy doing this, right? and I feel like if I'm being bested by 2 people at the same time, it is what it is. But if you're just watching Jeff run around, shoot through walls, you get a little paranoid.
I think so. I totally agree with you. I definitely think it should be in the replay cam so that people don't get paranoid. And to finish answering your question, which I think is a really good point, I feel like we have to accept or acknowledge the fact that this is a tool that is meant to increase the level of coordination for everyone. So it is true that it probably reduces a bit the skill gap in terms of communication and synchronization quality between the very best of our Rainbow Six players and the average population. I think that's true, but I think this is for the best, because the best moments that you have in Siege are the moments where you coordinate correctly. And if we can put some of this pleasure in the hands of more people, I think it's for the best for the game. I think it will get people even more in love with the game because they will feel like they played well even more often. And I think that's good for everyone, including pro players, because they will get more watchers, they will get more. Like, I think it's a good thing overall. But definitely these are things that we can keep on challenging. And typically the frustration on the receiving end is something we're going to try to monitor a lot, because that could be a reason to challenge this aspect of the feature for sure.
I think one thing I would want to mention is when we're talking about this, just for anybody who maybe hasn't played the test server yet or isn't familiar with exactly what the Ping 2.0 is. With the Ping 2.0, there's really 2 parts of it. One is that you can now ping specific gadgets, okay? And I think that right there has been universally very widely accepted as a great change and really no downside. Yeah. The other aspect of it is now on a drone or a static camera, you can now yellow ping players, okay, or yellow ping period. And
not players. Not players. That's
positions.
The thing. Because you can scan a player. A scan guarantees immediately when you see the red thing, you know it's a person immediately. There's no communication needed. Everything is said. You just red ping. Everything is said. You can try to prepare the red ping to react faster, but everything is said. But with the yellow ping, there's no guarantee that it's perfectly positioned. Like, of course, you're going to tell me that for a pro player, nothing is going to be easier than doing a perfect yellow ping, and that's 100% right. But for your average Joe, it's not that easy. You still need to take your mic. You still need to coordinate properly around it. You still need to aim correctly at the ground to get the good yellow ping. All of that is not, like, from what we've observed with our test so far, it seems like people worry more than what actually happens in the game. But here again, like that's why we're getting to TS. So it's totally possible that we're wrong and that we need to change this aspect. Another reason, by the way, why we put the yellow ping in the observation tool point of view is that at first, when this feature started, you were doing it from the operator point of view, and the only thing that was added was the ability to ping the gadgets. But very fast when we played with that, we felt like, oh god, pinging the gadgets is just so good from a drone point perspective. I need to be able to do it from a drone perspective. It's so much more useful. But then when we started doing that, we felt like, okay, but then it feels like I have the full ping in operator point of view, but it feels like in the drone point of view, I only have half of it. And so very often I forget to use it because I feel like I don't really have the full feature available. So it just felt more natural to have the full functionality available for the 2 perspectives. But of course, now we need to see if it works perfectly in the live environment, and it's possible that we have to challenge it. I hope not, because I really feel like it's a better user experience to have the whole thing in the 2 perspectives, but we're definitely open to questioning it.
Well, it's definitely a big change, something we have to get used to, but I think there's no doubt that contextual ping at least is so good. And how we've made it this far without anyone ever like freaking out about not having it. Because I know that people have mentioned that they would like to ping it, and it's always been like, it's a quality of life thing. But just being able to ping a Maestro cam so my Sophia doesn't have to spin around for an hour figuring out where it is, it speeds things up so much, man.
Oh yeah.
Like it's actually insane what it costs you in a round just in terms of trying to tell where different things are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there any discussion with you guys regarding the effect this will have on IQ? That's one of the things that came to mind for me is, in a way, you could say that a drone in the objective is actually stronger than IQ with her gadget above that objective, because the drone can ping it for any player on the team. All players will be able to see it. IQ can only see it herself. Was there any conversation about that and how that'll affect IQ?
Yeah, but we don't know yet. It's hard for us to say exactly what will happen. There's a risk that it makes her less relevant. It's possible, but at the same time, if it is the case, then it's just a better reason to try to improve IQ. Because fundamentally, what IQ does is reveal things that are hidden. The drone role is not that. The drone role is to communicate something that is being seen from the drone perspective. As a drone, you still need to get in. You still need to see directly what you want to reveal. As an IQ, your advantage is supposed to be, okay, I can see things through walls, through surfaces, things that are hidden, and I can reveal them. So it's supposed to be different functionalities. Now it's perfectly possible that we see that IQ needs some love to like really shine in this new environment. It's very possible.
Let's talk Thatcher.
Ooh. Hey, I put out a tweet asking for questions. Let me start this out like with this, because I put out a tweet saying we were going to have you on and asking for community questions. And one of the ones we got was from good old Emzo. Emzo, and I love Emzo. But he was asking, with the Thatcher change, is the timing of it. He was talking about the 20-second meta, and he feels like the Thatcher change could make the 20-second meta worse. I disagree, but I'll let you respond.
He's always banned.
Yeah, was there any concern with the Thatcher nerf and the fact that he now only disables across the board? He no longer disintegrates objects, and that making the 20-second meta worse than it already is.
We did talk about it a bit, but at the same time, solving the 20-second meta takes a lot of solutions, and whether Thatcher is here or not is just not enough to. It's not just Thatcher that will disable or enable this whole meta just by himself. I don't think. Plus, fundamentally, we've always been unhappy with how Thatcher works. Like the fact that you can just completely destroy gadgets on the other side of a wall without taking any kind of risk. And this is just the most frustrating thing on when you're playing Bandit and you're not super good at the game, and you put out your little batteries and the round starts and you don't even see someone, as is not even something that came inside the site, and your batteries get destroyed. This is just like,
it's like the Grinch stealing your Christmas presents. It's horrible, man.
It's terrible. Like there's no richness in this interaction, and we've always felt like we needed to change Thatcher, and it might not be the final step, by the way, for him, but it's definitely a step in the direction that we think is right, because fundamentally opening a window for opportunity, we feel like it's just more interesting. Like it can have some side effects that we wouldn't like increasing the 20-second meta, but I doubt that it will make much of a difference in this direction.
I would actually
always ban Thatcher.
Yeah, but
we're talking about the pros. He's always banned.
I would actually, I'd argue that it would do the exact opposite, because now and you have a hard cutoff time. You know that it's only disabled for a certain amount of time, so you will gamble your utility in that time and do this all or nothing take. I actually think, if anything, it's going to speed it up, because he's going to get banned less, without a doubt. And that you have 15 seconds to do stuff in. So we're going to see like the DC rush we saw on CCTV in the major, right? Where they drop 3 EMPs and then go. They could still have done that with the way that Thatcher is now, but they couldn't have been chilling around outside for a minute and 30 after having destroyed everything on the entire side. So I think overall it's more in line with how the other disablers are. Like, you can't guarantee that the work you put in is still there in a minute and 30 unless you're checking it again, right? So it makes them way more interesting, at least. And it's also a little bit of it opens up for some of the newer operators to do some jobs as well.
I think so.
I would even argue maybe that, like, I watched all of the NA major over the past weekend. Shout out to Dark Zero for winning it.
Of course,
congratulations.
I had to sneak that in there. But I would almost argue I didn't see the 20-second meta. I'm not what I always considered it. And obviously, I'm not like challenging Enzo on this. He's way more knowledgeable in this subject than I am. But I mean, I think that to say that there's still a utility clear meta is very fair to say. But as far as like when I think of the 20-second meta, I think of no real action happening in a round until the last 20 seconds, where you get these like 5v5 executes, and I didn't see that, and at least not in NA. It may be existing in other regions more. Maybe I'm jaded because Dark Zero won, but I thought that the quality of Siege we saw at the highest level over this weekend was some of the most entertaining that I've ever seen. And it could have to do with the players that were involved. It could also have to do with the meta. It could be a combination of everything. So I understand where he's coming from with this question, but I don't necessarily feel the same way, I think, is the way that I would sum that up.
I think the problem with metas is that, like, no meta is ever going to be fun if it lasts for too long. That's really the big thing. It has to change, because I don't think anyone is too upset for like the first month of a new meta. But if a meta keeps going for like 6 months or a year and no real big change happens, then it gets a little frustrating, because you're seeing the same thing over and over and you're not seeing enough innovation. But I mean, half of it is how you do with what you have, and the other half is what you have like of options, right? So like half of it can be fixed by operators and maps and stuff like that, but the other half is like the way you choose to play. That is a really big thing. If you bring certain, like, look at the APAC and Latam, some of the things they're bringing, right? Like, we've seen a ton of Finca there. It's way different than what we see in NA.
Very different,
so yeah, different regions have very, very different metas. And I don't think one is more fun than the other, but it's nice to see that they're different, because that means that there's some sort of room for people to still, you know, create their own thing. Yeah, exactly. I think it's like that should be the goal. At least that's what I hope. That there's always an option, and there's freedom for the players to find a solution to a problem. They aren't forced to deal with a problem in a certain way. As long as that's there, then I'm happy as a viewer, man. Like that makes it entertaining. I am afraid that, like, in maybe a year, 2 or 3 or 10, that there's gonna be so many options that if I'm not I don't know how you're gonna deal with it in terms of how do I keep up with it as a viewer with all the options that are gonna be there. Because when I watch Dota and League, I have the top-down view, and I, like, even though I don't know what the thing with the axe is doing, I kind of understand when he runs over there and there's fire, that's a bad thing. But with all these cameras, gadgets, and whatever else we might have, are you afraid that at some point there's going to be so much that for new viewers it's just way too scary to get into?
Just tell them to watch Get Flanked videos. That's it.
There we go.
Exactly.
That's all I need.
All of your videos before they can start watching Pro League. That would be a big barrier of entry. Nice for you, but probably a problem for us. No, but it's true. It's a potential issue. I think fundamentally where an FPS is a bit more difficult to watch than a top view like a MOBA. So that's a thing. And then I guess another aspect for the answer is when you look at how LoL and Dota have been proceeding, they were creating a huge amount of heroes at the beginning of their existence, and then at some point they started to like slow down a lot. So even them, it looks like it's probably not just for the watchers, but even for players and for watchers, there's probably a point where adding like more operators or more heroes or more items, it can become a problem to just have too much. So I definitely agree. It could become an issue. I don't think we're there yet. I think we still have room for to add more, but it could become an issue. It's true.
I played Dota for the first time about a year ago. First time in my entire life ever playing Dota. I as a new player going into that, there was I felt I couldn't grasp everything. So I've always felt like if I take that experience and I put it into Rainbow Six Siege, I think we have a long ways to go. And I think that, in all honesty, Siege does some things better to help new players already, even though we don't have as many necessarily options, I guess, as you could say. And in some ways, I think they do some things that are really cool too. I think that their training programs and stuff like that are really advanced and some cool aspects there. But
agreed.
Yeah, I mean, if it's kind of like one of those things where, like, if for a new player getting into it, the longer you wait, in some ways there's going to be more to grasp, but hopefully as well, that means there's going to be more to appeal to you as a new player. That's like, I guess, the give and take.
True.
You also land in the meta, so I guess that helps a little, right? But I remember we were doing something where we brought in people that have never played Siege before to try and play it, and there is no bigger joy than having someone run up to a wall with a sledgehammer and just not want to stop. Like they make one hole, they're like, oh my god, I can do. They just keep going, and then they die, and they're like, next round I'm trying the same thing.
As someone who used to run playtest on Siege during development, I could not agree more.
It's beautiful seeing that happen, but on the other hand, poor player, man. Like they spawn in, they run, 10 meters, they get spawn peaked. Oh, all right, fair enough. We'll take away the ACOG. They finally, they put one guy on 50 HP, then they step in a Capcan trap. And, okay, we'll remember that next time. Okay, no windows, no doors. Then they repel, they get jumped out by a Valkyrie. Okay. It's rough. We'll find another one. It's a very long and very unforgiving entry into the game. But I do feel like once you're there, like it's very hard to find anything that substitutes it. I play many different shooters. But it is almost impossible to find, well, it's not almost, it is impossible to find something where you have this level of options, I guess, in a game. Because I feel like if I have a day where my aim isn't that good, I can do something else. I can play different. I have other tools. And if I have a day where I really feel like I'm hitting my shots, I can get by doing that. And that amount of power to the player is really, really fun to have. You never feel like you're funneled. But damn, there's a lot in the new one.
There is. There certainly is.
What about the hatches?
The hatches.
I saw you said that depending on feedback, depending on how it runs out, it might or might not be reinforced, the roof hatches. But have you considered making it so it costs from your reinforcement pool if you want it done?
Of course. But how?
You're the game designer.
That's true. You got me there. No, ideally, of course, that's what we would do. Ideally, defenders should be able to choose to do that. They should be able to choose to use one or two of their reinforcements to reinforce the hatches. Of course, that's what would make the most sense with the economy of the game and how the game is balanced in general. The problem is that we don't really have a good way to do it. Like in terms of realization, it's very hard to imagine a gadget or something that allows you to do it from below. It would probably be a super specific gadget, like an operator gadget, but it shouldn't be. Sorry, I just need to close the door because it's raining super hard.
I can hear it. Sounds like hail.
There we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, it's hard to imagine how you can do it from below. You'd need like a sort of special gadget, but everyone should have that gadget. It shouldn't be only reserved to a specific operator. Every defender should be able to do that. It's hard. We didn't find a good solution yet for how to give the option for defenders to do it. So, but ideally, I agree entirely. It should be something that you can choose to do as a defender.
You make it so when you pick the sites in the start, you have a tick box whether you want the hatches done or not.
Yeah, something in the menu.
But it might also be that
with the UX guys, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, it might also be horrible if people forget to do it. Then all of a sudden, your entire plan is gone, and
because you have this very specific way of doing things when you take bomb sites that are on the ceiling.
Yeah.
So we need to very clearly tell you when this bomb site is on the ceiling, because a lot of people don't know which bomb sites they're actually selecting.
That's fair.
Yeah. There's a lot of difficulties with doing something super specific like that. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know which is the best option to do that. But
my fear is having 12.
With player feedback right here. We can do this right here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments, respond to this idea, okay? Because I know that this is. So what if on defense, when you walk under a hatch that's above you or a hatch that's right next to you, instead of the current animation that you have, you look at it, you get an option to hold F and reinforce the hatch, and it magically happens. I know that goes against realism. I know that that wouldn't make sense logically, but from the gameplay perspective, I think that's what makes the most sense to me personally. And if you're watching this, put in the comments, would that be a turnoff for you for something like that to happen magically? Maybe you could call it like the Harry Potter of ability. Like when they push F, they bring out a magic wand and do abracadabra. The hatch is reinforced.
If I saw a hatch, if I saw a hatch get teleport reinforced through my hologram, I would be, my immersion would be broken.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the struggle. I mean, because I know what you're saying. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have the operator jump up and reinforce and hang there, and you know what I mean? Like, it's a struggle.
I guess it's always been important. I think some of the success of Rainbow is still coming from the fact that it's believable.
It's grounded.
Realism isn't necessarily a sacred thing. We don't want to sacrifice everything for that, of course, but I think it matters that you can believe in what's happening, like, to some extent. Now, of course, we're cheating. Like, of course, there's a lot of things that don't exist in real life. Like, of course, but I still think
they're building ideas that exist, right? Like Jaeger's ADS is actually on a tank.
I'm thinking about this more. I'm getting roasted in the comments as we speak right now. It's happening. There's people typing right now.
There's people typing nice reinforcement. Nice reinforcement.
Yeah. All right, I kind of want to bring it back to Sam a little bit, and just ask, like, you mentioned, skill gap compression earlier a little bit, and how that goes into the thought process with the ping 2.0, and that's always something you think about a lot. The question I would have is like if you think about Sam right now, he can put 4 of his Argus launchers around the map. Do you get to a point where you have the ping 2.0, you have those 4 cameras, or and all this information, that you could honestly benefit from one of your players being dead instead of alive? Like, I know that sounds crazy, but like, imagine that scenario, like where Sam's like, okay, I got all 4 of them out. I'm just going to go take some crazy risk right now. I'm going to try and take one of them with me, and then I'll be on cams for the rest of the round.
It's a great point. It is literally one of the guidelines that we wrote when we start working on big project like that, like new topics like that we want to open. Very often we take the time to write what we call a project brief, where we try to, from the get-go, to write guidelines or where we want to go and where we don't want to go, what we want to avoid at all cost. This is one of the things we want to avoid at all cost. Like, if at any point the prototypes that we play with make us feel like it becomes more interesting to be dead, like more valuable to be dead than to be alive, to have one of your players dead, this is a huge problem, because we never want to encourage a behavior where it's more rewarding to suicide one of the players than to stay alive and try to fight as an alive player. That would be super bad. We're absolutely convinced we don't want that. So it could become a risk. You're absolutely right, but it's actually one of the guidelines that we like, one of the lines we don't want to cross ever.
Now, to be fair, I don't think we're there yet with Sam, as far as it's as an attacker, you always have the ability to get on cams while you're alive. So if you have some map control, you can just get on cams and then get the information and get up and have another gun. So I don't think we're there yet, but something that I was thinking about. But one of the things I wanted to mention with Zero, that I think anytime there's a new operator, people kind of get shocked by. And maybe there's some concerns with how strong his gadget is. But, if you compare that to Valkyrie on defense, and anybody who watches the podcast knows that I'm not a big Valkyrie fan, but you think about Valkyrie. Valkyrie has the entire prep phase with no fear of death, where she can spread her cameras out throughout the map. And then attackers have to push into that area at some point. Depending on where she puts her cams, she can also put them outside. She can't do that during the prep phase, but still. And then you think about Zero on the other side of that. Zero can place his cameras, but it requires some map control, and in a lot of situations, maybe in some scenarios he'll be able to shoot him through a window or whatever, but he's got to take some map control and put him in positions. Also, there's no guarantee that, like, he can put up one of them to watch a flank, but a defender, there's no guarantee that a defender has to move into that line of sight in order to win the round, and that's not the case with Valkyrie. So I think that anybody who's concerned right now about Zero, I would challenge him to think about it in terms of Valkyrie. And I think it puts it in a little bit of a different light. But that's just my 2 cents on the whole Valkyrie thing.
I'll give you 2 months before Zero is your new favorite one to hate.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I like him right now. I think he's super fun to play.
Do you guys have any kind of do you have some sort of like calculation of value you put on an operator in terms of what's their mass of utility worth? Like their main gadget, their secondary, like how you combine that. Is there some sort of way of saying that this is what we're happy with? If we give him like one more, it's way too strong. If we give him like one less, it's too little. Or is it just based off what feels right?
We don't really have a magical recipe. It's not just based on what feels right, because we base our decisions on facts, like what people say and the stats that we get on. But we don't really have like one magical way, for instance, to wrap up everything into a single mathematical formula. Like we can't really tell you, I don't know, how many bulletproof camera is
equivalent of grenade.
We can't really tell you that. Like it's always contextual, because not every ops has access to everything. So not every situation can be compared. Like every time you make a choice, you make that choice within a specific context. You take an operator versus another operator, but then within that operator, you take a gun versus this as a gun, or you take this secondary gadget versus this. So it's very hard to find a way to just wrap up everything in a single recipe. And maybe it's better that way. It's more fun to keep it a puzzle.
Yeah, it leaves more thinking,
more
which
interpretation.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it makes it better than if we knew a value of an operator. And it's almost impossible, at least as a player, to, without immense amounts of data, to say if that like player bias that we have, if it's actually true. Because there are operators that I think might be way stronger than they actually are, or the other way around, just from my experience. But that might not be the same in the overall arc. You change something to reinforcements on hatches in this one. So the health pool is now
yes.
It's one big combined health pool, if I remember correctly, 1 million health on a hatch.
Correct.
And a thermite charge does 1 million. The new heart breach charges does 1 million as well if they're fully placed on top of it. I think it was. Mav does like I can't remember, 87,000 or something like that per damage, but that's to like help you in case you got impact tricked, or what's the goal with that one?
The goal is just to allow for combinations, because right now I guess it doesn't happen that often, but it still feels very weird that I don't know, if I'm Hibana and I have like 3 pellets exploding on the hatch and then I die, and then my teammate comes in and he's Maverick. It doesn't make sense that he needs to still open the hatch as if it was completely untouched. Like it should get it should be possible to combine these things. So it just feels right to do it that way, and it's probably even more important now that we have more heart breaching tools. Like the more you add them, the more it feels weird if they can't combine. Like I don't know. It's a quality of life thing, but I feel I think it's an important change.
Well, it's really nice if you're ace, and as you mentioned, like there's 3 Hibana pellets on the hatch. Now you can go for 1 ace or 1 Selma on the hatch if your Hibana died.
It should work. Like there's no reason for it to be forbidden by the game. So
it's a super nice quality of life.
Be a big key there too. You think about the kitchen hatch on Clubhouse. Maverick put like 1 line in it, and then all you need is like 1 more X Kairos. That could be a possibility there. I think that's something that's really cool. How much did this patch play into other changes, nerfs, buffs to operators that maybe people have been asking about or for a while? Were you holding off on some of those? I'll give you a couple of examples. One would be IQ and maybe the G8 losing angle grip. You know, we come into this patch and now IQ has lost the traditional ACOG. Maybe Nook getting ACOG. You know, you come into this patch and now Nook has the 1.5. Were those things known to you, and you were kind of like, was their attitude of let's roll this patch out and see where that puts us, and then we'll address any nerfs or buffs based off of that?
That's very true. I know that Mathieu had been holding on some changes because we knew that this big change was coming. Ideally we don't want to change the same element or like the same weapon or something several times in a row, because it gets a bit hard to follow for everyone. So we try to hold a bit. If we know that a big change is coming and we have other smaller changes in mind, we're going to try to start by the big one and then see if we still need to do the little ones. Otherwise, it's a bit of a hurdle to just keep on going back and forth between changes. It can become a bit hard to follow.
Makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I want to put you on the spot a little bit here, okay? And I know
Go for it.
I'm putting you on the spot, but you couldn't be on the logic bomb without me putting you on the spot at least once. Last time you were on, Buck, I think, was the big hot topic, and I know you don't have all the data in front of you right now, but are you happy with where Buck is right now? Are you happy with that change? Are you looking back at that and saying that was the right decision to remove frags from Buck specifically?
I think it's a bit hard to say for now because I feel like it mixes. I feel like the big problem that we still need to solve is metagame being too stale on attacker's side, and the fact that you still have this list of things to get rid of, and this as a whole metagame is not very fun to play or to watch. It's not always like that, but even during this weekend, I think we could still see a lot of it. So I feel like I'm not going to be satisfied until that metagame has evolved enough. So I still think we had good reasons to do what we did for Buck, and I feel like now he's probably in a more reasonable place in terms of how much presence he has in the Pro League overall ecosystem. But I still feel like the real problem hasn't been solved, and that real problem is just okay. How come it's so hard for attackers to just have to get rid of all these defenders' gadgets that are being deployed or put out during the prep phase or after that? So I'm only half okay with what we did for Buck. If that's the kind of answers that you're okay with.
That makes sense. I think that's a great insight into your mindset right now. I mean, thinking that you're not happy with necessarily where we are. There's still some major meta issues that you're trying to solve. Can you give us any type of like what's going through your head right now as far as what you think, what direction you think you might go to try to solve some of these issues?
Okay, I'll give you something. A lot of us are avid watchers of Logic Bomb, and a lot of us were very interested by some ideas that you've had in this podcast exactly about this topic. I won't say more for now, but there is definitely things that you guys have been discussing that have been inspiring us on some things that we're working on, and that we hope could have a very positive impact on this metagame issue. So I won't say more for now because it wouldn't be fun if it was if I told everything. Plus, as you know, I never want to be too specific until I know that we have a specific timeline, that I'm certain we can put things in players' hands, because I don't want to just tease and not be able to deliver on promises. So, but I can tell you that if you just think about what you've been discussing in the past on this podcast when you were discussing this metagame issue and the kind of ideas that you had to try to solve it, then you'll get some ideas on where we might be going.
I think that's a very fair way to say it, because if just the story you had about the Heartbreak charge and how much that has changed, until there is something to show, it's probably better keeping it vague and saying that we're looking at it. That's probably the better one.
Constantly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's always an evolving thing, and I think Warden's a perfect example of that. Yeah. You might look 6 months down the road and be like, well, we were working on this, but it's not really an issue anymore, So I think that's a perfect example. I know we're running close on time here. I think we have to end with Tachanka. Where is Tachanka? Everybody's really excited about this Tachanka rework. And to be fair, at the Invitational, it was only put out that, hey, this year we're looking at a Tachanka rework. We're still in this year, okay?
We are.
But there's only one season left, so...
It's true.
So what's going on with Tachanka?
We're on track. Okay. It's very close. I can't be too specific for now. Sure. I have no fears that we're going to respect our promise, and I know for a fact that we're going to deliver on it. So I'm super excited about what I've been seeing during the whole development, but especially in the past weeks. It's really coming along together, and I'm super excited, and I can't wait to reveal everything that we have to show about him. And don't worry, the patience is going to be rewarded.
Awesome. That's good to hear, man. All right. Anything else that you have, Alex?
I have one last question. So there was a mention about you reworking. I know this isn't your exact field, but maybe you know something about it. Reworking sound. What does that entitle? Because there is so many things that, like, there's a lot of misconceptions. Sometimes the sound really is buggy, and sometimes it's great. But repacking the sound. What is it that you're aiming to solve with that? Can you help with that?
When you say repacking the sound, what exactly are you referring to?
A blog post made, top issues blog post. It said that I think it said in this coming season, you were looking to redo the way that the sound is being packaged or something like that.
Okay. I think it refers to our tech pipeline. I don't want to go into that because I have like some notion of how it works and how it's being changed.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the way the sound data is being compiled and basically put into the game is being changed. But I'm just completely out of my league when talking about this. So I don't want to say something that is just too far from the technical truth of how it's actually being done.
No, I prefer that as well, yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to do it. As always, JB, thank you so much. Two important things for everybody watching. Down in the description, there's going to be a link to the latest dev blog about the optic changes. Lots more information there for you. We'll also have JB's Twitter linked. So if you want to follow JB and get some tidbits from now and then about upcoming patches and stuff like that, and insight into this to the game, then definitely drop him a follow there. And with that said, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Of course, guys.
Yeah,
thanks for having me. It's always super fun to discuss new patches or anything with you guys. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Please pass on, our congratulations to the rest of the team for rolling out this huge patch, especially under the circumstances that everybody's been under for the last 6, 7, 8 months. I mean, to roll out something like this is a huge feat, and I think you all deserve a big pat on the back for that. So please pass that along from Alex and I.
Damn well done.
Job
well done.
Thank you.
We're a big team, and I know that a lot of people are working their ass off to be able to do something like that, and doing it from home with sometimes having kids at home. Like a lot of people right now, are having a lot of challenges working from home and a lot of difficult situations. So thank you thank you also to the whole team for working like that on everything that's being delivered. It's very, very impressive.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up, guys. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, thank you, JB, for joining us. And if you all enjoyed, make sure you tune in next week. Don't forget about those links down in the description, and we will see you guys on the next one.